What makes it so hard for people to speak or philosophize or even teach on morality these days? It's been multi generational influence from our media and from each other that we spread an idea of passivity and to not judge. However, I believe there's a part in ourselves that we don't want to judge, especially out loud, because as soon as you judge out loud to somebody, you are now open to be judged, right? And that is what you have to do if you start to speak on morality and speak on ethics and speak on these things, in you are becoming putting yourself in a position to be also pointed at, you know. So a lot of people just stay away from that, because once you've said the words and they are especially recorded and you put your name to those words, then you are held accountable to your own words, right? So when we start to speak our truth and what we think is right and moral and ethical, then it's harder for us to go back and on those words. You know, those words are now in our brains, and I do believe that until we speak our truth, we don't know who we are. And as we speak, as I'm speaking now, I learn more about myself, and I realize is that morality and ethics are less subjective than people make them out to be. The only reason why they seem that way is because we don't speak enough to realize that. We all kind of agree mostly on ethics, and there is certain things that people uh, will stand to their death behind, that are different ethics than other people. But I think that's based on intergenerational trauma behind that thing, and and we have to look at those things as cognitive dissonance is why people will stand behind things that are not based in truth and logic and morality. So it's hard to even judge them in that situation, because we know that they're there. Because, for example, the abortion thing is that became normalized in our communities, and for us to condemn people and call them murderers for standing behind the right to have abortions is you're pushing on something that they know somebody that's had one, or themselves or their mother. They're connected to that emotionally, and so it's hard for them to allow you to these people to condemn. But we have to know that there is, if the leading cause of death in children is in humans altogether is abortion. 1 in 5 in Canada. So it is it's something that people hold close to their hearts. They'd rather that to have more life in this world, and it is. So those are touchy subjects to go on, and that's because people are connected to that trauma, and they if they don't want to, if they don't have the ability at that time to go through their traumas to be able to change their ideological possession, then it's, you're only doing them a disservice by pushing on them when they're not ready. And so that's why as soon as they start making things laws, that's when you're going to start to see people really push. When you start pushing on people with laws, and that paternal governing, that's when people go, no, I want freedom, I'm not being structured, right? So that you tell, same thing with, like, here's another touchy one, for example, like drug use, especially like that's around cannabis, because it's one of the ones where people are like, hey, how do we look at this with children, right? Because that's a morality or ethics thing, is how do we experience it. When I would say, from my experience, is when my dad hid it from me, and just went out and came out laughing all the time, and always like was so mysterious about it, made me want to discover it, right? However, if you were more honest with your child and were like, this is a special medicine, it's very advanced, and it's something that you can learn about as you get older. However, the reason I use it is for an adult reason. You just let them know about it, give them a healthy fear about it, tell them it's a dangerous thing to use unless you understand it, right? And you tell them that and you show it to them. You don't hide it from them, right? Of course, you keep it at a high shelf away from them, but you're not doing this hide away things and like the telling them there's only certain information that you should see, because you know what, as a what I've seen with the world, the people that have tried to keep drugs away from kids, that people went more towards drugs. So we need to like more educate people, and that's why I don't like our government being so paternalistic and telling us, oh, there's only certain things you need to know, right? And that's the dark father, right? I know things you don't know, and that's why, for example, this is censorship. They don't want people to be able to make up their minds themselves. They want to tell you what you know because you don't know better, right? That's a very dark father energy of the government, right? And the we have to step away from that and become our own creatures. And if we're just stepping online and listening to everybody speak and regurgitating people's words, then we're just a copy of other people. But if you sit and you speak your truth, you start to realize who you are and how your words come out, and you try not to be so controlled by one side, and I believe that you become a teacher when you realize that you're not you're a teacher is speaking and teaching, but there's thing about somebody that is a true teacher knows that there's a cycle between teaching and learning, and it's like the yin and the yang. The sun's up here, here's the ground, right? I see as the paternal is the teacher, right? So when you're learning, you're getting the receiving as the feminine. You're receiving the energy and receiving the knowledge, and what you as you turn, as the days change, you put the knowledge out there. So why else? That's what we need to do is be humble enough to be always turning. As soon as people become masters, for example, they stay in one position, then that's how they will start to deteriorate both their spirit and their body. So we have to be learning and teaching and keeping spinning and knowing when we have people above us in our competence that we can learn from, and know when we're above, and the people need to know too, is we are giving off from let's say beta to serving somebody and leading somebody, and it's not serving, let's just say following. Sometimes we follow, sometimes we lead, right? And so as I believe that it takes courage to start a conversation, because that's like the cutting through the woods, right? And that's why time I'm speaking, I ask people to comment, or even I ask people if they want to have a conversation with me and videotape it, because that's how if I've said anything that I believe that is off, and sometimes I've just misspoke, or sometimes I'm just totally off base, or I'm not thinking about it in other subjective situations. So I invite people to teach me, and that's when this video ends, and there's the comment section below, so. And I think that don't be afraid to get involved with speaking on morality and ethics, and you know, you have to find the right ways to say things. You know, if you see something that's disturbing in your community, that you are directly connected to that person, not just on the internet where you don't know the person. If you know the person, there's like a relationship you have there, and there's a ability for them to receive your voice, and there's teachings that you have that you can put on them, then do it. You know, it may cause waves, but the the truth is gonna set them free, and also it's in the long run will gain your self-respect, right? So taking an oath to speaking truth is a hard road at first, because you're going to be pulled down from forces that are want to slow your awakening, you know. And I believe that there's a lot of people that awakened many years ago, you know, but I think there's times when they go stagnant and they reawaken, they go back to sleep, all of that, right? But the as people start to find their true voice and start to speak it, and other people kind of like, let's say, shut them down, they're going to pull them down out of their awakening. So, you know, it can, to become who you are, you have to break free from the crowd, and your voice is going to bother the crowd, and what you become is going to bother the crowd. So you're going to have to get used to loneliness, you know, or not needing to be accepted, because if you start to speak from a truth that comes from your heart, and that is not edited by your need to fit in, or your need on the community, need on the government, you know, if we have to behave if we are not independent. And that means spiritually, mentally independent, and financially independent, you know. So, but there's ways now for us to do this, and I think that's what we're going to start to talk about, is how we can get, especially off the financial. Um, there's ways for us to change some local municipal bylaws and such, so we can have more people live on our land and help pay for the land that's becoming more expensive to own, and making their lives cheaper, and also, you know, making it so they can be more free and not be living on the edge. Because when you're living on the edge, you live in fear, and if you're living in fear, you can't live in love. So let's find a way to get out of the grips of this and this dependence on this system, so that we can let go of our fear. And let's try to always stay spinning, you know. This is the truth in our heart. There's times when we need to be the masculine, there's times we need to be the feminine, there's times where we need to be the transmitter, there's times we need to be the receiver, right? Much love.